Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I am a digital marketer in life sciences. And before we get started today, I just wanted to play a quick message from our sponsor. And again, it's not wanting to start for.
Imagine being at the epicenter of the next breakthrough in biotechnology. That moment could happen for you this October at Bio on the Bayou 2025, where Southern innovation meets scientific excellence in the heart of New Orleans. Over 300 of the brightest minds in biotech are coming together for 2 extraordinary days in New Orleans. We're talking groundbreaking research from powerhouses like Tulane, Auburn, the University of Mississippi, Xavier University of Louisiana, and LSU Health. Expect revolutionary technologies, cutting-edge research, and industry-shaping expert panels that you won't find at any other event, plus networking opportunities that could transform your career. This isn't just another conference, it's an intensive 2-day summit where real partnerships form. We leverage the cutting-edge Partnering One platform to ensure that you'll connect with exactly the right people, whether you're seeking investors, research partners, or your next big opportunity. The future of biotechnology is being shaped right here in the broader Gulf South and having a global impact. Will you be part of it? Mark your calendar for October 28th and 29th. Head to bioonthebayou.com right now and secure your spot for the most exciting biotechnology event of 2025. The next breakthrough could be yours. Bio on the Bayou 2025. Register today.
In this episode of Life Science Success Podcast, my guest is Brian Lortie. He's an experienced pharmaceutical business leader with over 25 years of experience leading teams across various organizations and scales. He has a lot of experience, and I'm excited to have him as a guest on the Life Science Success Podcast. So welcome.
Thanks, Don. Great to be with you this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit about you and your career, but also diving a little bit deeper into Uniquity Bio and talking a little bit about the organization. So maybe we should just start with a little bit about you and where have you been in your career and what led you to life sciences?
Sure. Happy to walk back through memory lane a little bit. I've been interested in life sciences and specifically in the intersection of business and medicine really coming out of college. My undergraduate degree was in liberal arts and science, classic pre-medical type curriculum. Came right out of school and joined the pharma industry because I saw that as a place where, first of all, my interest in business and marketing and driving programs and projects forward intersected with healthcare and medicine and treating patients and advancing. It sounds like a lot for somebody coming right out of school that I'm probably embellishing a little bit looking back, but it was that combination of science, medicine, the excitement of both of those coming together that attracted me at that point to the drug industry, and it turned out to be a pretty good call.
Very good. And so tell me a little bit more about some of the key challenges and successes that you've experienced during your time as a executive in the pharmaceutical business, especially at Endo Pharmaceuticals, where you were president.
Yeah, I mean, whether it was at Endo, Endo was an interesting part of my career. That was, a period of time running a very complicated and robust specialty pharma business. Prior to that, though, I had spent the first half of my career at SmithKline Beecham and GlaxoSmithKline, which is really where I learned the trade. Growing up in a big global multinational company like SB, which then merged to eventually become GSK. It's such a terrific experience because of the opportunities that were available for those who could raise their hand. So I, grew up in a commercial organization, but also had the opportunity to live and work outside the United States on several occasions. Managed a country operation in Ireland at an early point in my career. Came back to the U.S. and managed a large large business unit, commercial business unit at that time, comprising $3 or $4 billion worth of revenue, huge scale. And then from there, as part of my development, I had the opportunity to go back to Europe. Went to Brussels, where I ran a global program involved in product development R&D. It was really my first taste of the R&D side of the business, which was really exciting and interesting, and really expanded my portfolio skills. The ability to have those experiences in a big company like that and to move around really had a huge impact on my trajectory. And I look back very fondly. I learned a lot of great lessons from a lot of great people there. Morphed from that, after that experience, I was recruited. It was time to try something different, and I moved into the specialty pharma world, where I ran the pharma business at Endo for a number of years. Really exciting, quite different. We were involved in a lot of mergers and acquisitions. It was a period of time of really aggressively building out the portfolio of the company, kind of evolution of the company from its earlier phase to what it became after that. And that, I cut my teeth and did a lot of deals, learned a lot about M&A, learned a lot about company financing, and continued to learn about leadership, all of which were very helpful, and lessons that I draw on even today in my current role, which is very, very different.
Is there one moment or one item that you would select out and say, look, this was probably most pivotal in my career? Just curious if there's one moment that you could tie to, hey, look, this is probably the biggest intersection that I ever faced, and luckily I chose the road that I decided to go down.
It's very hard to say that there was one of those moments. I think you get to a certain point, and I've been doing this for a while. There's probably a lot of those moments. And luckily for me, and maybe a little bit more than half, I chose the right fork. I chose the right road. But I think your career is made of sometimes the experiences you learn when you actually take the wrong one, right? Or when you take the road less traveled. I go back early in my career, when I was in, one of my first early marketing jobs as a sort of a product manager, early marketing role, where, back then everyone wanted to be on one of the big teams, one of the big name brand teams with 30 product managers and, hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing budget. And I had the benefit of learning the trade on some of those teams. But after a few years, I had the opportunity to join and actually lead a much smaller team on a set of products that were not exactly the name brand products. They weren't the ones mentioned by the CEO at the earnings release. And boy, am I ever happy I did that, because that's where you really learn, right? You don't have all of the resources that you might need. You have to learn to kind of influence others throughout the organization that you have no direct authority over. You have to kind of bring them along to your way of thinking and align them to your objectives. And I learned a lot there. And that again, those are lessons, they're lessons in all of those experiences, but those are lessons that stick with me today.
Yeah, what that reminds me of is, I remember very distinctly a product manager in General Electric, and we had a lot of different products in General Electric healthcare, and one particular manager had said to me during one of the meetings, he just said, look, I am treating us like we are a standalone company. And so essentially, everything that we fight for every day, every win that we have, everything that happens inside of this is in our own company. Of course, we're funded by one of the greatest places at the time. And I love that sort of mission, right? But then you could sort of leverage that and pivot it forward and, say, hey, look, all of the people that learned in that environment learned a lot of great entrepreneurship skills. And so that I would definitely tie that back to what you just said as well.
100%. I could not agree more. What you say there has a lot of elements of, I think, what forms not only a successful team or a successful company, but successful leaders. It's the concept of skin in the game. It's the concept of everyone has a role to play, of being an entity within a larger entity, and thinking of yourselves as a company. Throughout my career, as I rose up to positions of authority, I always made sure that, to the greatest extent possible, that everyone on the team had had a stake in the game. And in a lot of cases, what that means is some sort of equity in the company. It's really meaningful because then, whether it was at GSK or whether it was at Endo or even today, every member of our team here has an equity share in this company because we ask them to do a lot, right? We ask them to work hard and work long days and sometimes travel and be up on the weekends and be available for phone calls and video calls late at night. Everybody having a share in the outcome really helps that along. But also, it then lets me go to people and say, "Look, I expect you to manage your budget like it's your own money, because in fact, it turns out it is your own money, right?" So that's an outstanding mentality. I again look back to product management as a place where a lot of people first start learning the craft of leadership because it's the first time that they have access to, or in some cases, accountability for a P&L. Maybe it's the first time they start to have people report to them. Great training ground, and one that in my industry, if I look around at leaders and executives and CEOs, many, if not all of them, have spent some time kind of in roles just like that early in their career where they can learn that craft and really be tested to see if they've got what it takes to be a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about your experience. So you led Onspira Therapeutics until its acquisition by Altavant Sciences. What are some of the most significant milestones and lessons that you learned from that experience?
That was a great experience for me. It was my first private, small, venture-funded biotech company, right? So that's the company that I co-founded with some of my partners after leaving the safety of big publicly traded pharmaceutical companies. I had gotten to the point where the allure and the draw of entrepreneurial biotech medicine had just become too strong, and I stepped out at the right time in my life for me and for my family to give that a try, and with the support of some really great partners around me that had done that many times before. And we founded that company around very interesting technology for a rare disease that really terribly impacts lives of, in that case, patients who have lung transplants, right? I mean, lung transplants are a terrible enough problem to go through. Usually people who have lung transplants have already lived decades of declining health. They're fortunate enough to get to have a lung transplant, and then all of a sudden the clock starts ticking, and at the end of 5 or 6 or 7 years, they're very likely to be afflicted with a condition called bronchiolitis obliterans. This was a product developed to help extend the lives of those patients much longer by directly treating the inflammation that is happening in the lungs, deeply in the lungs in this condition. It was a proven biologic, anti-inflammatory biologic product that we reformulated for use as an inhaled nebulized product. Very exciting. Worked really well. And we moved pretty quickly. We funded that company with a small financing round, put a largely virtual team around it, advanced it over the course of 2.5 years or so to validate the concept, get some proof of concept, preclinical, finish the formulation. And we were in the process of going to raise the next financing round, which would have taken the program into the clinic. And lo and behold, we had some unanticipated but quite welcome interest from strategic partners who said, "Look, this program would fit very well into our pipeline. We'd like to license it." And our first answer was, "Well, we're not done with it." But it turned out to be the right thing for the program, for our shareholders. It allowed us to put the program in the hands of a well-funded team in place to take it on the next lap of its journey. And from the perspective of our shareholders, when the product ultimately is successful, we will all be successful as well. But we were able to then step back, put the baby in the hands of somebody else, and then say, "Okay, well, what do we want to do next?" So, once in a while, I mean, that's what this business is about. You always have to be open-minded and not get locked into a strategic path. Sometimes there's an opportunity that turns out to be the right thing for the person, the program, the shareholders at that moment, and you have to be, sort of agile enough or nimble enough to take it. So that's what we did.
So we oftentimes talk a lot about, boards and the decisions that are made at the board level as well in the podcast here. And so I'm just curious if you look back on that decision, were there, I would imagine that there were differing perspectives that different people had, in terms of what you should do as a next step. Um, was the board a strong, supporter of going the direction that you were going? And then also, were there other voices, maybe your own, saying, well, hang on a minute, because this could actually be, something that we could do, something great with?
Again, I was very fortunate, as I am now, to have a small and very supportive board, right? So, that is such an important dimension of this business, is to have a board that's aligned and that is open-minded enough to make the right decisions on behalf of the program and the investors. And in this case, it was pretty easy. We all had to get over that initial hurdle, because it is a little bit like giving up your baby, right? So, the first step is the reverse diligence back on the potential acquirer. And we had a couple in the mix that we were, fortunate enough to be able to choose from, and we chose a very good partner. But there's always the discussion around, well, let's step back for a minute. Let's not have a quick reaction on either way, either to say, no, this is a bad idea, or yes, this is a great idea. So, you're dealing with shareholder money. You're dealing with the future of a program that you've already invested a number of years in. But in this case, it was very clear that it was a good outcome for the program itself and for the stakeholders. And we were able to, align behind that and make the deal happen in a pretty efficient way.
I think it's so important for people to hear as well, just what that, what the decision process looked like, because it's, for a lot of founders and a lot of people who commit a lot of energy into something, it's hard to give up as well. But, also knowing that that objectivity, comes sometimes with a little bit of time and really kind of looking at the landscape. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
It's so true. And whether it's in a board of a small biotech company, or whether it's in a project team in a large pharma company that's advancing a program or two or three, there is a very dangerous condition, which is I've been with this for 10 years and I can't let it go problem. And sometimes you have to let it go, either because the data tells you that, unfortunately, this is a program that's not going to advance. It's no longer going to solve a significant problem, and it's not worthy of further investment. Or the other alternative, which is, this program belongs in someone else's hands, right? And for the good of the program. But it's hard, especially for a scientific founder, or for people who have, really devoted heart and soul over the years to let the program go in either of those situations. But, the landscape is littered with the remnants of bad decisions there. And also, luckily, the list of successes is very long, where people were smart to say, okay, it's now time for the next stage here. And that's what we're going to make happen.
So as you look at your transition to Uniquity Bio, was it quick after you left Onspira, or was it something that you took a bit of time to make the transition to?
Well, my partners and I, Steve Tillman, Kelly Copeland, who had been with me on the journey on Onspira and other companies as well for themselves, we sold Onspira to Altavant at that time. That was at the very end of 2019. We thought we were going to take a few months to take a breath, but you remember maybe that something happened in early 2020 in the spring that really changed everyone's lives. And so we were connected virtually as we were all in lockdown for a while. And we said, okay, well, clearly we want to do another company, but how do we want to do this? What do we want to do? Where do we want to spend the next, 5 to 10 years of our life? Let's be thoughtful about this. And we decided that certainly we wanted to put together another company. But in this case, what we wanted to do is reach higher and do things in a little bit larger scale. And the answer to that, obviously, is to start with answering the capital question. So we said, look, in this case, let's answer the capital question first. That will enable us to really be thoughtful and kind of aggressive in terms of what kinds of programs we bring in and what kinds of people we hire, what kind of company we build. So we worked our network a little bit and very rapidly reconnected with some of our friends at Blackstone, some of the folks that had been at Claris Investments that was acquired by Blackstone in 2018 to become Blackstone Life Sciences. And, we sat down with them and said, look, you guys have capital. We have operating capability and track record. It seems to me like there's a match to be made here. And to their credit, Nick Simon, who is on our board today, and Kieran Reddy and others, all the way through the Blackstone Life Sciences group, there was almost immediate endorsement that this made a lot of sense. They have life sciences capital at scale. They are wanting to build promising new companies and support promising technologies and programs. And we had the track record of building and advancing programs all the way through the clinic to FDA approval and beyond multiple times. And we put it together. So, once that kind of handshake happened, we said, okay, let's figure out how we want to build a company. Our team had a ton of experience in the inflammatory medicine and immunology area, so it made sense to do an I&I company, not to mention it's such a huge area of opportunity of just exploding innovation and the opportunity to continue to push the envelope and bring new therapies to patients who still suffer from these conditions. And it gave them an opportunity to put capital at scale, like real large capital to work. Big chronic indications, big markets require big investments, and that's exactly what they had. So we set out to find a promising program to build a company around. We were enamored with the TSLP area because it really is a novel MOA. It's an MOA that sits at the top of the cytokine cascade and therefore can impact lots of different diseases, lots of different inflammatory diseases. And we set out to find a program. We found that Merck had advanced one to a certain point and then strategically parked it or paused its development. This happens all the time in large pharma when strategic prioritization changes over time. Because of our relationship with Merck and Blackstone's relationship with Merck, we were able to reach in, make a deal for out-licensing the program. Built the company. Merck took an equity position in the company. Blackstone provided, a large amount of scale capital for us, and off we went. So it sounds easy. It takes a lot to do that. That was about 18 months worth of work, hard work by ourselves as we, put the company together and added founding team members along the way. Hector Ortega, who's now our chief scientific officer, Lisa Whitmer, who is our chief development officer, and others, and founded the company in January 2022. And here we are a little bit more than 3 years later with 3 programs in phase 2 development in the clinic against COPD, asthma, and eosinophilic esophagitis, with very important data readouts facing us later this year and early next year. So it's an exciting story, but we're just getting started in many ways.
So you've touched on a big part of this, but I just want to make sure that I give you the complete opportunity to share with us, the overall mission of Uniquity Bio and, what you hope to achieve. I guess, what is your long-term vision?
Sure. So, and I'm glad you asked it that way, because our long-term vision is not take a program, develop it, sell it, and sit on a beach, right? Our long-term vision is to start with building just the world-class team that can do that time and time and time again, to build a conveyor of opportunity, as it were, and to have a team that sticks together through multiple programs, because it's that experience over time. It's that shared experience, that legacy and lore that can be built as a team grows together and experiences successes and challenges that really, I think, gels something special, right? And in our business, so many times what happens is a team comes together around a program, they develop it to a certain stage, it either works or it doesn't. If it works, they sell it. And then everybody wonders what they do the next day, right? Next Monday, and you sell the furniture, and you sell the coffee maker, and then you all get together and you build it back again. In this case, we decided we wanted to build a team that could do this time and time and time again over time, and therefore it's just efficient. It will lead to more programs making their way to patients. It will lead to more investment turning into value. And it's how we set out to build the company. It's how we structured the company as well. So that's our long-term goal. This is the first program. Of course, every program gets 100% attention of the company. And as we slowly build out the pipeline, we will scale the company accordingly so that every program gets 100% attention of the people that they need to. But our model is, as I say, different than what happens a lot of times, which is a little bit more like making a movie. I always use the analogy of, in Hollywood, a producer and a director get together and there's a script and there's a studio and there's some funding and they hire the cameraman and they hire the key grip and the gaff and a bunch of actors and actresses and they make a movie. And when it's done, and everybody kind of scatters to the wind. And I just don't think that's the best way to advance biotech programs. So our goal, our long-term vision is that this continues to deliver multiple high-quality medicines to patients time and time again, maybe long after I'm here, right? I mean, the whole goal is that this is a legacy operation that lives and grows for a long time, and we've built the team. We've recruited the types of people who want to be part of that story, and that's been great.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about it that way too, because I mean, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like, in the show, who are earlier stage. They're working maybe on their first, hopefully successful product. But at the same time, after growing up in large corporations for most of my life, you look at most large corporations. I mean, you have a pipeline, and that pipeline, whatever drug moves forward, the scientists and everybody inside of the company doesn't stop to exist. They continue forward. And
Yep.
And that's what I hear, you building, is that this pathway of success. And obviously you're going to have your challenges along the way. I mean, that's not to, say that you're not, but at the same time, having a successful team that knows how to overcome things together and discuss things together is the most important place to start.
It's the important place to start, and then that team is a bit like a garden. It requires nurturing, it requires sunlight and fertilizer and water, because you can't ignore that. If you ignore that, the whole system falls apart, and then you wonder why the program failed. It starts with the team and it ends with the team, and we spend a lot of time making sure that we've got the right people on the journey with us.
So important. So how does Uniquity's partnership with Blackstone impact your strategies and goals?
Yeah, I mean, it's central to our ethos. It's central to who we are. We really are partnered with Blackstone. I as I said before, they have provided our capital, and to date, they're our sole capital partner. Although we are expanding a bit to bring some other investors on board alongside them. But it is a partnership that goes way beyond capital. And it's so important. And money, people say, well, money's fungible, just get some money and off you go. With Blackstone, the life sciences group is built around industry professionals who have also done this time and time again. And they hail from the highest levels of big pharma and biotech and have the experience set. So, we are on the same side of the table with them. We are constantly interacting with not only the core team, not only my board, but our scientific advisors and beyond, as we grapple with challenging questions and forks in the road where we have decisions to make. We bring them in on that, and we get their input and get their advice, because they're part of our success, right? We're all in this together, and that is so huge. That is so much more than just having somebody who writes a check once in a while when the balance starts to get low, and it's a huge part of our success. Plus, the Blackstone name means a lot. The Blackstone contacts in the world mean a lot. I like to think that our company and our team's reputation also means a lot, and together it's a very, very powerful partnership.
So could you tell me a little bit more about the products that you're currently working on and what stage that they're currently at as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the core program, as I explained before, is an anti-TSLP antibody. Its name is Solritatug. It is being advanced right now in the clinic for COPD, for asthma, and for eosinophilic esophagitis, or EOE. EOE is often called asthma of the esophagus. It's a really terribly debilitating condition that causes narrowing of the digestive tube of your esophagus. to the point where people can't pass food, have difficulty swallowing, and it's an inflammatory condition, right? Just like inflammation can cause narrowing and solidification of the airways, this happens in the esophagus. So in many ways, it's the same type of inflammatory process, and this product, this TSLP product, can interfere with the inflammatory process at the right places that we think can have a meaningful impact on the treatment of those three important diseases, as well as an entire spectrum of other inflammatory diseases that either we or a partner could take the program into. But those are the three we're focused on. These are global programs. They are getting the entire focus of our team right now, and we're working hard this year to deliver what we hope to be meaningful, highly differentiated, impressive, and significant data from those three programs later this year and into the early part of next year.
So tell me a little bit about your approach to innovation and R&D, given the fact that you've lived in R&D yourself. I mean, you talked about your chief scientific officer just a little bit ago. How do you carry out your overall approach to innovation inside the company?
Yeah, it's interesting because by virtue of our mission, we are really focused at clinical stage or near clinical stage programs. Like this program had been in patients and was ready for us to take into the clinic. Now we had to do a lot of work on manufacturing and fine tuning the cell line and the productivity and the yield of the cell line, so we can produce material to take into the clinic and beyond. So, tremendous amount of work done on that. But we are largely focused on clinical stage programs and will always be. That being said, so that kind of takes the R out of the R&D component for us. We've depended on others to do the early research. That being said, though, we have expanded our pipeline more recently with a couple of preclinical programs that use our TSLP antibody as a backbone to build bispecifics. And we have two very interesting bispecific programs using the TSLP as a backbone and adding other cytokines to that we're rapidly advancing through much earlier stages. But these are using modalities that are proven, right? So we're taking two proven things and combining them into a new entity that we think can advance us into either more difficult treatment areas, different patient phenotypes, or novel indications. So those programs are advancing. Those are really kind of fun for us. They'll be at candidate selection later this year. We'll take them into IND enabling work and then hopefully be ready to put those into the clinic within, call it a little bit more than a year, maybe 18 to 24 months from where we sit now. So again, an ability to expand and take our knowledge and take our program further. So that's been really exciting. We've been able to spin up a team around that of really talented people who know what they're doing. We're leveraging the expertise of some really highly qualified external experts, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the fruits of all of that labor as well as the core program.
Absolutely. So, Brian, what's the greatest piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh, there's been a few, some of which I listened to, some of which I unfortunately may have ignored in retrospect. The one I always keep coming back to was taught to me by J.P. Garnier, who at that time was the CEO of SmithKline Beecham, and in fact, the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline after the merger. JP was just an incredible guy who I learned a lot from. He came into the company when I was a product manager, and by the time he left the company, I had advanced through general management, and I was vice president running a major multi-billion-dollar business for the company. But I learned a lot from him, as did many others. And the lesson I learned from him, and it was at one of the leadership retreats, and there was a small group of us sitting down, and he said, look, the topic was leadership, right? It was probably a similar question to the one you just asked. And he said, I want you all to understand one thing and one thing only. And that is, and he was a Frenchman, right? JP was from Marseille, is where he had been born and raised. And he said, leadership, c'est choisir, or gouverner, c'est choisir. Sorry, I just anglicized it. Gouverner, c'est choisir. And what that means is leadership is about making a choice, right? To lead is to choose. And we talked a lot about being decisive, right? And I've taken that lesson with me through my entire career. At some point, it's the leader's job to make a call. And the data is never going to do it for you, and the information is never going to do it for you, and the consultants are never going to do it for you. At some point, you have to have enough information to make a decision and move the company forward. You also need to be smart enough to know what is it you're going to look at to tell you whether or not that was a good decision, right? Because they may be bad decisions. Sometimes it's best to make one, move forward, and then make a mid-course correction and then keep moving forward. Companies get paralyzed because decision making is tough, and they get drawn down into just talking and talking and thinking and thinking and groupthink, and nothing ever happens. And that's when I probably have used that one this week, Don, right? That one is always with me. Get the information, get the best opinions you can from your team, from your insight, from your experience, make a call, align everybody behind that, move forward, but be willing to look for the signs and symptoms to say, maybe you got it wrong. And if you got it wrong, fix it, right? But keep moving, make decisions and keep moving. And that to me is the best leadership advice that I've ever gotten.
This is so important because I've said, like you, I've seen teams waste tens of millions of dollars trying to correct something where they've already said, hey, look, this thing is just too far out. For whatever reason, we're not able to drag it across the finish line. But there are people that want to, sort of continue fighting. But there's this sort of, as you said, the leaders at the end of the day need to make the call. And, leaving it to people who are too mired, too close to the decision sometimes isn't the right call. You need to just say, hey, look, it's time to sort of rip off the Band-Aid and let's go spend tens of millions of dollars on something else that might get us there a little bit faster. And who knows, maybe we shelf this thing, to your earlier comment, about where you found your intellectual property. So, hey, look, maybe that's the right decision. I don't know.
Yep. No, it's good point. And, organizations, teams, large and small, they look to the leaders to make the calls and keep the organization moving forward. Not everybody will be happy with every decision, but the least happy decision is the one that nobody makes. And everybody's like, what are we doing? I don't know. We're sitting here, we're not doing anything, and the competition is running by us.
Right. Absolutely. What inspires you?
I'm inspired by the business that we're in. I'm inspired by the opportunity we have to serve patients. We spend a lot of time trying to make sure we don't forget that there are patients at the end of all of this work and all of this capital that we spend and that we raise. We have a team week here at the company every fall. We've had 3 of those so far. And we this year brought in a patient and a physician that are suffering, that patient's suffering from, in this case, COPD. And we had everybody in the company in the room, and we talked to that patient. We understood what their journey was like and what was frustrating and what was exciting and what was scary. And then we talked to the physician and learned about the challenges that they faced and how the work that we do might fit into maybe making a small impact on that. And that was inspiring. And that's the fuel that keeps everybody going for the next few months, right? In the next 12 months. So we always make sure we're thinking about the patient. We talk about it a lot because that's where the true inspiration can be drawn. It's what an opportunity we have to be in a business where if you do this right, you can actually help somebody's life. Not everybody gets a chance to do that.
Absolutely. What concerns you?
I'm very concerned about the macroeconomic environment right now. I think that we're in a period of uncertainty and chaos that is traversing not just the political world, but if we're not careful, it will impact how likely companies, investors are to put money to work, whether on the macro level in the United States, on a micro level in biopharma. If we start messing up with what is a world-class, world-leading regulatory environment that has produced amazing medicines, miraculous medicines that have changed lives over the last, call it 6, 8, 10 decades, right? We forget that doesn't just happen naturally. And if we start to question science, if we start to not believe what the data tells us, if we start to interject tremendous uncertainty into what kind of medicines get approved, I really fear about what impact that's going to have on innovation and the stifling impact on our industry.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of echo that point, right? I mean, we all know that the past couple of years have been really tough from a capital investment standpoint for most organizations. And then, to also add on now that there are grants not being paid out and other things, there are companies that clearly will die in the valley of death because of the fact that, they needed that funding to kind of continue things on while they were, trying to find other sources of revenue. Let alone now if the other rest of the investment community starts to sort of take a pause, or delay things, it definitely will have an impact. And I one thing I've said as well is that thankfully we had some of the research shelved whenever we all went through COVID in 2020. That hey, look, companies could say, hey, look, this looks like that, and brilliant scientists started to work on things that eventually started to help people, whether it was diagnostics or recovery drugs from COVID, or finally the vaccine. I'm thankful to the fact that we have these brilliant people that all of us work around. But at the same time, those people, have bills to pay as well. And they don't just do this for the good of everything. We all have things that we have to support as well. And so at the end of the day, I do hope that chaotic environment plays out in a way that in the end, not too many companies suffer.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Let's just hope we can keep pushing through it, and with enough courageous, smart people to innovate through the challenges and hike through the darkness here.
Last question: what excites you?
So sort of the converse of what we just talked about. I mean, despite all of the uncertainty, despite all of the challenges, this industry, this country has always figured out a way to make it happen, make it work, right? There, and I'm excited every day by the team, by the people who have decided to come alongside us on this journey here. We've got 30-ish people, supported by a network of high quality external advisors and consultants that we consider part of the family as well. The work that they do and the energy that they bring every day to this job inspires me and excites me and keeps me on my toes, helps me get excited when I jump out of bed in the morning and face the challenges and try and lead that group to a very successful outcome, or multiple very successful outcomes.
Well, Brian Lortie, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and for telling me about Uniquity Bio and the great journey that you guys are on. I wish you all the success, and look forward to the future.
Thank you so much, Don. I enjoyed our chat.
Thanks a lot.